A man is most invisible when he's at peace. Not when he's rich, not when he's loud, and not even when he's loved. The true moment of his invisibility comes when he no longer seeks permission to exist. When he stops asking the world to reflect his value through the eyes of a woman. That's when he becomes a ghost to society and a god to himself. Epicurus understood this idea not as a rebellion, but as a quiet extraction of all the noise around him. While the world scrambled, consumed by each other's attention like hungry dogs in a cage, he slipped away, unnoticed, stepping into a garden, embracing silence, and living a life not dictated by others. In his world, no woman's mood determined his morning, and no ring defined his worth. But here you are, modern man, standing among the ruins, not of buildings, but of beliefs. Your masculinity has become a bargaining chip. Your solitude is treated as a diagnosis, and your freedom is seen as a red flag. You've been taught that a man alone is incomplete. But let me ask you, what kind of man needs another to finish his sentence? Who convinced you that wholeness could only come from her? You weren't born with this hunger. It was passed down to you like a family curse. The idea that your identity is unlocked by her approval, that your value is measured by how many women desire you, how happy you can make them, and how quickly you can bend to their expectations. You call it love. Epicurus would have called it madness. Because the moment you need someone else to validate your purpose, you've sold your soul for a smile. But here's the secret they never printed in your textbooks. A man who learns to live without applause becomes immune to manipulation. A man who finds comfort in silence cannot be blackmailed with loneliness. And a man who thrives in singleness is the most dangerous man alive. He cannot be bought, baited, or broken. His peace is not a performance, it's a fortress. Epicurus didn't run from life, he refined it. He carved out a version of existence that wasn't reliant on seduction or status. He didn't demonize women, he simply refused to worship them. He understood that pleasure wasn't in the chase, but in the absence of chaos. Comfort wasn't found in her arms, but in the absence of torment. And yet here you are, worshiping the altar of affection, praying to be chosen, devouring your dignity in hopes that it might be enough. You buy dinners you can't afford for women who don't even like you. You say yes when you mean no. Smile when you're dying inside. All because you fear the one thing Epicurus embraced like a lover, being alone. You fear silence because it holds up a mirror. And you know that once the noise fades, you'll be left facing the man you've been running from your whole life. Not the one who poses for photos or performs for dates, but the one who stares back at you in the dark, the one with unanswered questions, unmet goals. Never select a woman who doesn't respect masculine authority, period. If she sees your strength as a threat instead of a shelter, leave. If she competes with your leadership instead of complimenting it, leave. If she challenges your vision but offers no wisdom of her own, leave. A woman who refuses to respect masculine order will turn your life into feminine chaos. That's how kings fall. That's how legacies die. You're not here to save her. You're not here to fix her. You're here to build, and building requires alignment, not opposition. Machiavelli warned that men who fail to secure their power will soon become slaves to the very forces they once tried to control. You think you can handle her drama? You think you can manage her disrespect? You think love will fix everything? It won't, because she knows something you don't. You've already chosen her, and now she holds the power you foolishly handed over. Power is never something you negotiate in a relationship. You either possess it or you forfeit it. And most men, in their desperation to be loved, surrender their power wrapped in pretty words like compromise, understanding, and partnership. Noble words but beautiful lies. Machiavelli was ruthless in exposing this fantasy. He said it's safer to be feared than loved if you must choose between the two. If you have to choose, choose fear. Why? Because in the real world, love without respect is nothing more than slavery with a smile. And the man who lets a woman rule him in the name of peace is no different from a puppet king wearing a crown made of tin while his kingdom crumbles behind closed doors. If you want to know who she really is, observe her reaction when you set boundaries. Tell her no, Watch how she responds. Cut off her access to your time, your money, your attention. Listen to the silence that follows. Will she respect your distance, or will she try to manipulate you with tears, guilt, and empty promises? The truth is, most women today have been conditioned by a weak society to believe that men exist to serve their endless emotional needs. And most men, desperate to keep the peace, end up serving on their knees. But not you, not anymore. Your third commandment is this: watch how she handles boredom. Every woman is on her best behavior when she's entertained, when she's getting gifts, when the attention is endless. But boredom is where true character is revealed. Does she create value in silence, or does she stir up chaos to feel alive? Does she sit with patience, or does she ignite petty arguments just to feel important again? The woman who cannot control her emotions in boredom will destroy your life when real trials hit. You want a woman who brings peace, not a ticking time bomb that explodes the moment things quiet down. And now, let's address the lie you've probably heard your whole life: that a woman's past doesn't matter, that her history. He found more stability in solitude than most men find in marriage. The modern world calls that weird, but maybe the modern world is sick. So I ask you, not as a preacher, but as a fellow man, have you ever truly sat in your own company without seeking escape? Have you ever woken up, brewed your coffee, and thought not of who should be lying next to you, but of what still lies within you? If not, then your singleness is not your enemy. It is your last chance. The moment you stop romanticizing your dependency, you begin to reclaim your divinity. Let us go beyond the slogans, beyond the soft lies your heart clings to like childhood blankets, into the very marrow of why single men thrive and why most never will. Thriving in the Epicurean sense is not about surviving with a smile. It's not about comfort dressed in dopamine. It's the quiet conquest of inner chaos. And this is precisely where most men fail. Not because they are weak, but because they were never taught that stillness is strength. You were told to hustle, to grind, to acquire, but no one taught you how to simply be. Especially not in the absence of female warmth. You fear being alone because you confuse silence with insignificance. But Epicurus taught that a man who fears being alone will fear everything. And that fear becomes the architect of his enslavement. You don't choose love, you choose to be chosen. That's your first sin. You walk into relationships not as a sovereign, but as a beggar in a tuxedo, smiling, complimenting, hoping, dying a little every time she doesn't reply fast enough. You mistake this for romance. It's not, it's spiritual suicide. And it begins early. From the moment you were praised for being nice, rewarded for compliance, raised to serve, trained to keep the peace in exchange for the possibility of affection. Every classroom, every dinner table, every film whispered the same poison. To be wanted is to be worthy. You didn't learn to build a kingdom, you learned to decorate a cage. But here's what Epicurus grasped, and what modern men must urgently remember. The highest human experience is not found in passion, it is found in peace. And peace is impossible when you outsource your emotional temperature to the mood swings of someone else. What does this mean for the single man? It means that what the world calls lonely, Epicurus called free. It means that every night you sleep alone, every weekend you spend with your own thoughts, every meal you prepare without an audience, these are not symptoms of lack, they are symptoms of liberty. Let's be brutally honest, how many men in relationships today are truly free? Free to dream without asking? Free to speak without filtering? Free to walk away without ruining their lives? You see them smiling in pictures, nodding in restaurants, attending therapy to discuss how to be better partners, as if their masculinity is a disorder to be managed. But the single man who follows Epicurus knows better. He no longer treats his solitude like a waiting room. He knows it's a temple, a space where his mind sharpens, his soul settles, and his time becomes entirely his own. He reads, not to impress, but to understand. He exercises, not to attract, but to conquer the laziness within him. He builds, not for applause, but because creation is in his blood. And most dangerously of all, he becomes unbothered by rejection, by trends, by whether or not she thinks he's emotionally available. He no longer bends, he no longer performs. And in doing so, he becomes invisible to shallow women, invisible only to those with depth. That's what it means to thrive. You are not unloved because something is wrong with you. You are unloved because the standards of the modern world reward submission, not sovereignty. And your refusal to grovel makes you terrifying. But brother, be terrifying. Because the world doesn't need more agreeable men. It needs more sovereign ones. And sovereign men are forged in silence. Women were only the mirror. What you feared was your own reflection in their eyes. The truth that you had no identity outside of being desired. The truth that your greatness had been negotiated away for crumbs of comfort. That every "I love you" you chased was really a mask you wore to avoid confronting the fact that you'd never built anything within. Epicurus saw through this illusion with a blade so sharp it still cuts today. He understood that the world doesn't oppress men with chains. It does it with distractions, cheap pleasures, shiny promises, warm bodies that cool with time. You think you're choosing pleasure, but you're just choosing dependency in a prettier bottle. He warned us of all the means to ensure happiness, and of all the means throughout life, by far the most important is the acquisition of friends. But we replaced friendship with infatuation, brotherhood with hookups, truth with performance. And so you walk around with a grin stitched onto your soul, like a wound covered in perfume. You say you're happy, but only when she's texting, only when she's watching, only when you're useful. You've turned your heart into a vending machine. You insert kindness, effort, money, time, and expect affection in return. But this isn't love, it's commerce. It's negotiation wrapped in poetry. And Epicurus would laugh, not out of mockery, but sadness. Because you've been told to fear the single life. That it means no legacy, no love, no warmth. But here's the real question. If being single means you finally confront your own hunger, your own silence, your own madness, is that truly a curse? Or is that the very alchemy that turns men into kings? Think about it. The most powerful ideas in history, the most radical creations, the deepest meditations. Did they come from the arms of lovers wrote his meditations in a candlelit dinner with his wife? Do you think Da Vinci painted while replying to texts? Do you think Epicurus himself found enlightenment while arguing over where to eat? No, they withdrew, not because they hated people, but because they knew that greatness requires stillness. And stillness cannot grow in a house built on emotional turbulence. So ask yourself now, and do it honestly, have you ever truly been alone, or have you just been between women? Has your singleness ever been deliberate, or was it always just an accident you tried to fix? Until you can choose solitude as a path, not a punishment, you are not single. You are just stranded. But the man who is truly single, intellectually, emotionally, spiritually, becomes a volcano of potential. He doesn't need to seek validation because he has replaced external approval with internal order. His days are shaped not by the weather of her emotions, but by the architecture of his own intentions. And when that man finally does choose to love, if ever he does it from abundance, not lack, from fullness, not famine, from truth, not thirst. But first, he must earn the right to be whole. And that, my brother, is the journey the world keeps mocking, because it fears what you might become if you ever complete it.